On Christmas morning, I woke up feeling excited, expecting a warm family celebration. The smell of cinnamon and pine filled the house, and I thought everything would be perfect. My husband, Ethan, was helping Madison unwrap her gifts, and I couldn't help but smile at her happiness. That smile disappeared the moment I saw what she got, a brand new Mercedes, shiny and beautiful, with a big red bow on top. My parents were beaming, and Madison couldn't stop showing it off. Everyone was laughing and taking pictures, celebrating her like she was the center of the universe. Then, it was my turn. I felt a little nervous, thinking maybe my husband had a surprise for me too. But instead of a thoughtful gift, I was handed a pile of bills. Not just small ones, $30,000 worth, all coming from my mother-in-law, Gloria. She stood there laughing as I stared at the envelopes in disbelief. My heart sank, and my hands shook. I couldn't understand why she would do this on Christmas, a day that was supposed to be about joy and family. The laughter in the room felt like it was aimed right at me, a reminder that I was somehow less, somehow not enough. I looked at Ethan, hoping he would say something, stand up for me, or at least calm his mother down. But he just looked uncomfortable and avoided my eyes. He didn't know what to say or how to stop her. That hesitation, that lack of support, made the betrayal sting even more. I felt completely alone in that moment, surrounded by people who should have been on my side. Gloria's enjoyment of my embarrassment was obvious, and Madison, oblivious to my feelings, kept talking about her car and the gifts she had received. I tried to stay composed, but inside, anger and humiliation were bubbling up. I wanted to scream, cry, and run away all at once. The whole scene made me realize how toxic some family relationships could be, how manipulative and cruel people could act while pretending it was normal or fun. I felt trapped, powerless, and small, and for the first time I began questioning everything about my marriage and my place in this family. Despite the shock, a part of me started thinking about how I could handle this. I knew I couldn't let Gloria control or intimidate me forever. There had to be a way to protect myself and find justice without stooping to her level. My mind raced with plans, ideas, and possibilities, even as my chest ached from the emotional blow. That Christmas morning wasn't just about gifts or money, it became a turning point. I realized that my life, my dignity, and my happiness were mine to protect, no matter how much anyone tried to humiliate me. In that moment, I made a quiet promise to myself: I wouldn't let Gloria win. I would find a way to rise above this, to reclaim my peace and prove that her laughter and cruelty couldn't define me. It was the beginning of a journey I didn't yet understand, but one I knew I had to take. After that Christmas, the reality of the $30,000 bills hit me hard. I spent hours going over my accounts, trying to figure out how to cover the unexpected cost. Every number I wrote down made my stomach twist tighter. I had some savings, but not nearly enough. I called the bank, trying to ask about loans or payment plans, but the thought of borrowing more money just added to the stress. It felt like a mountain I couldn't climb, and I started to wonder if I'd ever be able to get ahead. Gloria didn't make it any easier. Every time we were around her, she found ways to remind me of my struggles. She would casually comment on Madison's new car or talk about investments and vacations while glaring at me, her words dripping with judgment. She knew exactly what to say to make me feel small. Even worse, she often did it in front of Ethan, expecting him to back her up or at least intervene. But he didn't. He tried to stay neutral, shrugging or changing the subject, and that only made me feel more alone. I wanted him to see my pain, to stand with me, but instead, I was left facing the humiliation myself. At night, I lay in bed, my mind racing. I couldn't stop thinking about Gloria's laugh, the way she had looked at me like I was nothing. I couldn't understand why Ethan hadn't defended me, and it hurt me deeply. Was his family more important to him than I was? Did he see me as weak or incapable? I started questioning our marriage, wondering if he would ever truly stand by my side. Every memory of his hesitation made my heart ache, and every thought of Gloria's cruelty made me burn with anger. I also started thinking about Madison. She had always been spoiled, but I never realized how much our parents favored her. Gloria seemed to take pleasure in reminding me of my place, and I began wondering if she had been undermining me for years without me noticing. It was hard not to feel betrayed by the people I loved, the people I thought I could trust. The shame and helplessness settled in like a heavy weight. I felt trapped between needing help and refusing to let anyone see me fall apart. I was angry, frustrated, and sad all at once, and I didn't know where to turn. The emotional toll of the situation was exhausting, and it left me feeling isolated in my own life. Even though I was hurting, a small part of me refused to give up. I knew I couldn't let Gloria's cruelty control me. I didn't have a plan yet, but I could feel a spark of determination growing. I would find a way to get through this, even if I had to do it on my own. The anger and shame were heavy, but they also made me realize I couldn't let myself stay powerless forever. I decided I couldn't just sit and let Gloria walk all over me anymore. I started keeping track of every bill, every comment, and every subtle way she tried to control me. I wrote down dates, amounts, and the exact words she used. It felt like building a map of her manipulation, and somehow, having it all on paper made me feel a little stronger. I could see patterns, and that made the situation feel less chaotic. One afternoon, I tried to confront her. I chose my words carefully, speaking calmly and politely, asking her to treat me with fairness and respect. I told her how humiliating it felt to be mocked in front of everyone, how the bills were impossible for me to handle on my own. I hoped she would see reason, or at least feel guilty. Instead, she laughed. Loud and cruel, right in the middle of the living room. Everyone went quiet, and I could feel my face burning. Gloria made it clear she didn't care what I thought or felt. It wasn't about the money anymore, it was about control and power. Ethan stood beside me, but instead of supporting me, he tried to calm me down and keep the peace. He told me not to make a scene, that I shouldn't upset Gloria, that it would all blow over. But his words didn't help. They made me angrier. It was like I was standing up for myself, but no one was actually on my side. That frustration started to sink in deeply. A few days later, Gloria approached me again, pretending to offer help. She said she could get me a credit card to cover some of the bills, acting like it was a generous solution. I should have known better, but part of me wanted to believe she might have changed. I looked over the fine print carefully and realized the help came with high interest, hidden fees, and strict repayment terms that would trap me even further. It was another test, another reminder that she only wanted to control me while making it look like generosity. That moment made me see clearly that confronting her head-on wouldn't work. Anger alone wouldn't win this battle. I realized I needed a plan, a strategy that didn't rely on her feeling guilty or fair. I needed to be smart, subtle, and patient. I couldn't let my emotions take over. I had to use the information I had collected to my advantage. For the first time, I started thinking beyond just surviving the situation. I began imagining ways to reclaim my power, ways to protect myself, and ways to turn Gloria's own tactics against her. I understood that revenge wouldn't be about yelling or arguing. It would be quiet, calculated, and effective. From that moment on, I wasn't just Claire, the person being humiliated, I was Claire, someone preparing to take control of her life and her future. After weeks of careful research and planning, I finally found a small loophole in Gloria's financial traps. One of the bills she had sent me included charges that were technically illegal or wrongly calculated. I spent hours making phone calls, reading contracts, and consulting an accountant, but eventually, I managed to reverse $5,000 of the debt legally. It wasn't the full amount, but it felt like a huge win. For the first time, I felt a sense of control instead of fear. I decided not to tell Gloria. If she knew, she would probably mock me or try to undo everything I had done. So, I quietly transferred the money and paid part of the bills without anyone noticing. It was a small victory, but it mattered. Sitting alone at my kitchen table after making the payments, I felt a mix of relief, pride, and a little thrill. I realized I didn't need her approval or assistance to solve my problems. I could rely on myself, and that was empowering. Ethan started noticing changes in me. He saw me handling the bills, making calls, and taking actions he never expected. Part of him looked proud, but another part seemed conflicted. He struggled between supporting me fully and feeling loyal to his mother. I could sense that internal conflict in the way he hesitated before offering advice or praise. I didn't hold it against him, I understood he was caught between two worlds. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't wait for him to act or stand up for me. I had to be my own strength. Emotionally, the experience was transformative. Until now, I had underestimated my own abilities. Gloria had always treated me as weak, incapable of managing money or handling problems. But reversing part of the debt proved to myself that I was stronger than I thought. I realized she had misjudged me entirely. That small legal victory wasn't just about the money, it was about proving that I could stand up for myself in ways she hadn't expected. For the first time, I didn't feel powerless when I thought about her. I started seeing her differently, not as someone invincible or untouchable, but as someone who relied on underestimating others to maintain control. That realization made me bolder. I felt a spark of confidence growing inside me, a sense that I could take more steps, plan further, and slowly reclaim the power she had tried to take from me. That night, I went to bed feeling lighter, almost hopeful. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I had proven something important to myself: I wasn't helpless. I could fight back in ways Gloria would never see coming, and I could do it quietly, smartly, and effectively. That first victory gave me the motivation to keep moving forward, to continue turning the tables bit by bit, and to show that I was not someone to be underestimated. A few weeks later, Gloria organized a holiday gathering at her house. I thought it would be a normal family event, but it quickly turned into another trap. As soon as I arrived, she found a way to make me the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. She casually brought up the bills I had been struggling with, laughing as if it was a joke, and made comments that reminded everyone how I was falling behind while Madison was living in luxury. Madison, oblivious to the humiliation I felt, drove everyone's attention to her new Mercedes. She boasted about the trips she planned to take, the expensive gifts she had bought for herself, and the fun she was having. Her excitement only amplified the contrast between us, and I could feel my cheeks burning as I tried to smile and stay composed. It wasn't just embarrassment, it felt like my failures and struggles were being displayed for everyone to see, and Gloria was orchestrating it all. Ethan was there, and I looked to him for support, hoping he would step in or at least defend me quietly. But he didn't. He tried to stay neutral again, moving carefully between me and his mother, speaking in soft tones that didn't reach Gloria or stop the embarrassment. The lack of his support hurt me deeply. I could feel the emotional distance growing between us. I realized that in moments like this, I couldn't rely on anyone else to protect me, I had to rely on myself. Sitting there, enduring the humiliation while smiling politely, I felt a shift inside me. The bills, the mocking, the laughter, all of it wasn't just about money. It was about power, control, and trying to make me feel small. I understood then that any revenge I sought couldn't be only about finances. Gloria had tried to shame me, to make me appear weak, and to manipulate Ethan into siding with her. What I needed was a way to reclaim my dignity and expose her hypocrisy. I began thinking clearly about the steps I could take. It wasn't about confronting her angrily or seeking immediate payback. It was about careful planning, about letting her underestimate me while quietly building my strength. Every humiliation, every sly comment, and every laugh at my expense only fueled my determination. I decided that my revenge would be smart, patient, and complete. It would show not just that I could overcome her tricks, but that she could never diminish my worth. That night, after leaving the gathering, I felt anger mixed with clarity. I refused to let Gloria define me or control how others saw me. I realized that dignity was mine to claim and protect. Her games might have caused pain, but they also sparked a fire in me. From that moment, I made a silent promise: I would not only overcome this, but I would reveal the truth about her manipulations in a way she could never deny. My revenge would be about justice, respect, and proving that underestimation was her greatest mistake. After the holiday gathering, I knew I had to be smarter. I couldn't let Gloria humiliate me again or trap me in her games. I started quietly saving every extra dollar I could, cutting unnecessary expenses, and keeping the savings hidden so she would never know. Every time I managed to put money aside, I felt a little stronger and more in control. It wasn't just about paying off bills anymore, it was about having the power to act without being dependent on her. At the same time, I began studying legal options. I read about rights for handling financial abuse, contracts, and debt disputes. I wanted to make sure that if Gloria tried to manipulate or trap me financially again, I could respond effectively and legally. I also discovered loopholes in some of her tactics, ways to protect myself from hidden fees or unfair charges. It gave me a sense of security I hadn't felt before, a quiet confidence that I could finally fight back. I realized I could turn the tables. Using what I learned, I carefully started creating a financial setup that would work like a trap for Gloria. It wasn't about revenge she could see immediately. It was subtle, hidden in the way I managed accounts, organized payments, and documented everything she tried to manipulate. It was a private plan, one that would protect me while eventually giving me the upper hand. I also knew I couldn't do everything alone. I reached out to a few close friends who had always been supportive, and I found a trustworthy accountant who could help me understand the financial and legal details. Having allies gave me strength, not just practically but emotionally. I felt less isolated knowing there were people I could count on, people who believed in me and understood the situation. Their guidance made the plan feel achievable rather than impossible. Meanwhile, Ethan noticed the changes in me. He saw me handling my finances more confidently and asking questions he hadn't heard before. I could see both pride and confusion in his eyes. He loved me, and I loved him, but my growing independence highlighted the tension between him and his family. I wanted him to support me fully, but I also understood he was torn between loyalty to his mother and respect for me. That inner conflict added pressure, but it also made me more determined to succeed on my own terms. Emotionally, it was a delicate balance. Part of me still loved Ethan and wanted our marriage to survive, but part of me was fueled by anger and determination. Gloria's cruelty had lit a fire I couldn't ignore, and I knew that to protect myself and my dignity, I had to be patient, strategic, and relentless. Every decision, every saved dollar, and every piece of knowledge I gained was a step toward reclaiming control. I realized that my revenge wouldn't be impulsive, it would be carefully planned, and when the time came, it would be unstoppable. The next family gathering arrived, and I felt ready. I had collected all the evidence I needed, the bills, contracts, and records showing Gloria's manipulations over the months. I didn't make a scene immediately. Instead, I waited for the right moment, observing her as she tried to dominate the conversation and belittle me quietly. I stayed calm, letting her words hang in the air, knowing I had the proof to back up everything I would say. When Gloria tried to gaslight me, claiming I was overreacting or misremembering things, I calmly presented my evidence. Every contract, every bill, and every financial trick she had used was documented and organized. I didn't shout or accuse, I showed facts. Her confident smile faltered as the truth became clear to everyone in the room. I could feel the power shift, subtle but undeniable. For the first time, Gloria couldn't manipulate the situation, and it terrified her. Madison was watching too. I had expected her to remain oblivious or loyal to our parents, but instead, she grew quiet and thoughtful. The pieces were falling into place for her as well. She saw how her mother had treated me, how calculated Gloria's actions had been, and how much I had endured quietly. I could see a change in her, a mix of shock, realization, and even guilt. It was the first time I felt like Gloria's control over the family was weakening. Ethan's reaction was the most surprising. He had always tried to stay neutral, caught between me and his mother, but now he saw clearly what Gloria had been doing. His eyes reflected a mix of regret and anger. He began to question his mother's behavior, asking how she could be so cruel and manipulative. For the first time, he stepped closer to me, not as someone torn by loyalty, but as a husband who realized the toxicity he had ignored for too long. The tension between him and Gloria was visible, and it made me feel a sense of relief I hadn't expected. Throughout the gathering, I stayed composed. I didn't need to shout, cry, or beg for understanding. My evidence spoke for itself. The room's energy shifted, Gloria's laughter was gone, replaced by discomfort and nervous glances. I felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that months of planning, patience, and careful action had led to this moment. My revenge wasn't about humiliation, it was about exposing the truth and reclaiming my dignity. By the end of the evening, Gloria's power over the family had visibly weakened. Madison was no longer the carefree, spoiled observer, she was questioning, thinking critically about her parents' behavior. Ethan was beginning to stand with me instead of remaining neutral. And I felt stronger than ever, realizing that careful, strategic action could dismantle even the most controlling and manipulative people. For the first time, I saw a future where I was not just surviving Gloria's cruelty, but actively taking back control of my life and my family's perception of me. After the family gathering, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't had before. I focused on paying off every remaining bill on my own. Gloria had no part in it, and that felt incredible. Each payment I made, each debt I cleared, gave me a little more freedom and confidence. It wasn't easy, it took discipline, planning, and sometimes late nights calculating budgets, but I finally managed to pay everything off completely. I felt proud and independent, knowing I had done it without anyone's help. Once the bills were gone, I turned my attention to building a more secure future. I started investing carefully, choosing options that would grow steadily and safely. I was smart with my money, avoiding the traps Gloria had set in the past. As my savings and investments grew, people around me started noticing. Friends and family were impressed, and even Ethan expressed surprise at how far I had come. I could see that Gloria had underestimated me completely, she had thought I would always struggle, always depend on others. The real change, though, wasn't just financial. I began to understand my own value. My worth wasn't tied to money, gifts, or approval from anyone, not my husband, my mother-in-law, or my sister. I had survived humiliation, manipulation, and betrayal, and I had come out stronger. That realization was empowering in a way nothing else could match. I felt confident, capable, and independent. I could finally see myself clearly, not as someone others could define, but as my own person with my own strength. Gloria's reactions were telling. She tried her usual tactics, comments, jabs, and subtle insults, but they no longer had the power to hurt me. She could see I was thriving without her interference. Her laughter, which once cut deep, had faded into frustration and visible embarrassment. She realized her control over me was gone, and that loss of power seemed to weigh on her more than anything else. For the first time, she experienced the consequences of underestimating me. Emotionally, I felt free. The fear, shame, and anger that had haunted me for months were replaced with calm confidence. I no longer worried about Gloria's opinions or Madison's wealth. I was no longer competing or trying to prove anything to anyone. My life was mine, and I had proven to myself that I could handle challenges with intelligence, patience, and dignity. By the time the next family gathering came around, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I carried myself with quiet confidence, knowing I had reclaimed my power and independence. Gloria's attempts to intimidate me were powerless, and the subtle satisfaction of seeing her frustration was sweet but not cruel. I had transformed my life, proving that true strength comes from resilience, planning, and understanding your own worth. My revenge had shifted from money to something far more meaningful, reclaiming my dignity, my freedom, and my peace of mind. It was finally time for the last conversation with Gloria. I approached it calmly, taking deep breaths to keep my emotions in check. I wasn't going to yell or argue, that wouldn't accomplish anything. I had facts, records, and evidence to back up everything I would say. I reminded myself that this wasn't about revenge through anger, it was about reclaiming control and dignity. When I confronted her, Gloria tried her usual tactics. She smirked, raised her voice, and tried to twist my words, just like she always did. But this time I didn't flinch. I calmly presented the facts, showing the bills she had sent, the manipulations she had used, and the ways she had tried to control me financially and emotionally. She tried to interrupt, to laugh, and to belittle me, but I stayed composed. My voice was steady, my words clear, and my resolve unshaken. Ethan was there, standing beside me, and it made a world of difference. He had finally seen everything clearly, the constant manipulations, the humiliation, and the cruelty he had ignored before. He supported me without hesitation this time. I could see the conflict in his eyes soften into understanding and solidarity. For the first time, he actively stood against his mother's toxicity. That support strengthened me even more and made the confrontation feel complete. Gloria's confidence crumbled in front of both of us. She realized her control over me had ended, and she couldn't manipulate the situation anymore. Her usual smirks and laughs turned into frustration and awkward silence. I could see her trying to think of something to say, some way to regain power, but it was clear she had lost. The realization that her tactics no longer worked was a subtle but powerful form of revenge. It wasn't about money or status, it was about taking back my dignity and showing her that she could no longer hurt me. The emotional weight lifted off my shoulders in that moment was immense. I no longer felt fear, shame, or anger controlling me. Instead, I felt calm, strong, and proud of the person I had become. I had faced months of manipulation, humiliation, and doubt, and I had emerged victorious without losing my integrity or composure. By the end of the conversation, Gloria had no words left. I walked away feeling a deep sense of closure. I didn't need to continue fighting, scheming, or proving myself anymore. I had my life, my peace, and my power back. Ethan stayed close, acknowledging that our relationship was stronger now because boundaries had been set, respect had been demanded, and I had reclaimed what was rightfully mine. In that final confrontation, I realized that true victory wasn't about hurting Gloria or winning arguments. It was about standing firm, protecting myself, and taking back control of my life. For the first time in months, I felt free, respected, and truly empowered. I had won in every way that mattered. After the final confrontation with Gloria, I felt a sense of relief I hadn't known in years. I knew it was time to start a new chapter in my life. I focused on creating a space where I could be free from her influence and control. I moved some finances into accounts she couldn't access, organized my home and life the way I wanted, and slowly built routines that gave me peace instead of stress. It was a fresh start, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly in control. Gloria and even Madison began to face the consequences of their actions. Gloria's constant manipulations and cruelty were no longer tolerated by anyone in the family. Friends and extended family saw her behavior clearly, and her attempts to control or humiliate me backfired. Madison, who had once flaunted her wealth and status, began to understand the impact of her mother's actions. She started to question her choices and the way she had treated me, and that caused tension in their relationship. Their family, which had seemed untouchable, was now strained and fractured. Ethan and I worked hard to rebuild trust in our marriage. I saw his growth and understanding, and he made an effort to stand firmly with me when family tensions arose. We had open conversations about boundaries, finances, and expectations, and slowly we began to restore the partnership we both wanted. At the same time, I made it clear that there would be firm boundaries with his family. I would not allow Gloria or anyone else to undermine my life, my marriage, or my peace of mind ever again. Ethan respected this, and it strengthened our relationship further. The most important change, though, was inside me. I realized that the ultimate victory wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. It wasn't about making Gloria suffer or proving myself to Madison. The real triumph was reclaiming my respect, my independence, and my peace. I no longer needed validation from anyone else. I had faced months of manipulation, humiliation, and stress, and I had come out stronger, wiser, and empowered. I had learned to trust myself, to stand up for what was right, and to protect my life without depending on anyone else. As I settled into this new chapter, I could feel the difference every day. I made decisions without fear, pursued personal goals with confidence, and enjoyed simple moments without the shadow of Gloria's control hanging over me. I had turned pain into strength and humiliation into resolve. Every step I took was a reminder that I was capable of more than I had ever imagined. In the end, life had shifted completely. Gloria and Madison faced the consequences of their choices, Ethan and I rebuilt a stronger, more honest marriage, and I found a sense of peace and self-worth that no one could take away. The ultimate revenge had been mine all along, not in hurting anyone, but in reclaiming my life and proving that I could thrive on my own terms. I was finally free.